Ladies and gentlemen, I must begin this by saying we will all be operating like Night Lords today. I mean this in regard to how dirty and underhanded they fight. I am under the impression that you came here with not only the intention to win, but the willingness and desire to dominate your enemy. We will not be playing nice, respectful, or fair. We are taking every possible advantage that we can get our hands upon, and there will be no discussing of the Geneva suggestions anywhere throughout that process. You know what the old man once said just as much as I do. If you aren't biting people and throwing sand in their eyes, well, son, then you simply aren't trying hard enough. If you expected to come in here talking about, but my preferences, well, you can go ahead, take those, and shove them. You like those because they feel good to use. Fair enough. Well, guess what? Winning feels even better. You just don't know anything about that due to lack of experience. It's time to check your dignity at the door because we're not learning how to fight. We're learning how to win. The simplest prerequisite to make things easier is stack your team with people who can communicate with you. If you have no friends, that's fine. I've got a well-stocked Discord server for making some. Just be over 18 before joining and it's in the description. Alright, plug over. The greatest deciding factor to winning and losing is matchmaking luck. I have gone 32-1 in their annihilation mode and still lost. What I'm trying to say with that is, sometimes you just won't be able to outwork bad teammates. Here's what we do about it. I would hold out a bit to see if your team picks up the pace if they're doing terrible, but there's nothing wrong with cutting your losses early and saving your time. Some people will take issue with that because you're abandoning a team, but matchmaking mid-game happens quickly, so a spot will be filled rapidly. You will also be missing out on the end experience gain, so it's just something to be aware of. My rule of thumb is typically if I sit high atop the leaderboard in comparison to both my teammates and the enemies at the end, I do not stay in that lobby for a second run. Now that you've learned your lesson about abandoning bad teammates, something some of your fathers learned very early in your childhoods, one harmless way to sway your luck toward getting a good team is a cursory look over team members' levels. Your goal should be having levels on each team to where yours is either equal or higher on a player-to-player basis. The scale goes a little something like this because we're not going to be comparing every individual number. If it's 10 or below, they might as well all be the same level. You can get there accidentally. 11 to 15, they are still going to be pretty easy to trick, but these ones can start to shoot and use their abilities competently. 16 to about 23, these are going to be the ones that carry the team more often than not. 24 and 25, for some reason, means there is a 75 to 80% likelihood that those guys are gonna fucking suck, unless there are 3 level 25s together. I don't know what it is about the singular level 25, but the very second that they hit the threshold, they receive a traumatic brain injury and have to shit in a bedpan for the rest of their lives. If one of their caretakers knows why, please elaborate on that. I have no notion that they maintain the motor function required for typing, so I'm just going to take your word for it. Loadout-wise, there's a lot more do's than don'ts. The few rules worth abiding are as follows. Default to stun grenades or use a melt-a-bomb once you gain the technical know-how to utilize it properly. If you don't understand the melt-a-bit, it wasn't meant for you, you will understand it someday. I know it's good in operations, but do not touch the Melta in PvP or else you will be treated like a bag of prison ass. People with functioning brains will see you like an unguarded butthole at a federal penitentiary. If you pull it out, you're gonna get fucked. It may kill the dumb ones, but the good ones will look at you through the same eyes as a dog looking at a pork chop. It's gonna result in you dying far more than what is necessary. Speaking of dying, let's take a close look at class selection. If you are new to the scene, you stay your ass away from the 2 armors because all you're going to do is feed. The most beginner-friendly class is naturally going to be tactical, and if not that, the heavy. But there's a lot more to class selection than that when you finally get your shit together. This is because, skill-wise, apart from being able to aim, flexibility will be your greatest asset. Learn what classes play best where, and more importantly, learn why. Here's a few examples. Snipers with bolt rifles play well in the long sight lines offered in Cathedrum. Meanwhile, snipers play better on Mausoleum when using the bolt carbine and running flank routes. This is also going to apply to match types to a lesser degree. A Bulwark is a solid green light for static objectives like seize ground and capture control, but typically needs more fire support in the annihilation modes. And then there's Assault, that's just face fucking themselves, jet boosting headfirst into the objective no matter what the circumstance. Moral of the story, pick for the mode and map. Next, we will address each individual class, what areas they excel at, and how to counter them. But first, some general knowledge. You've got a few directions in how you're going to target enemies. You can either target the good enemies, which will have more deaths on your end but keep them out of important fights, or fight the bad enemies, which will rack up your kills but leave dumb teammates open from abuse by the better enemies. Which one you choose often comes down to this. If your team is better than the enemy as a whole, focus on the enemy's star players. If your team will lose as a whole, the best bet is destroying the enemy's more vulnerable players. As usual in these games, always try to approach from the angle where your right side is peeking around cover, and always remember, flankers, when we flank, we go behind, not beside. A knife in the spine is always more effective than a knife in the ribs. People are dumb. Let your team hold the attention while you go around or go over. Nobody looks these days. We are now into the classes, beginning with Tactical. Similarly to Operations, Tactical is an easy beginner pick, good for any map or mode. Good armor rating, many weapons, and an okay skill. There's no real lacking department on this class besides usually being selected by others first. Your positioning will be determined by the weaponry you settle on when entering a match, but overall, you have the most flexibility. Let's say you wanted to use the marksman carbine. It's a semi-automatic with good range. That means you're going to be sitting further back in your team fights. If you wanted something more swift like the auto carbine, then you'll be focusing more on flanking in the team fights. Naturally, things like the plasma or heavy rifle are your middle ground weapons. Your scan is a simple tool to use, just remember that it's a big-ass sphere which will go through walls, so use it that way. Also, it's manual activation, so get cover before you deploy it, and people are afraid of walking into it, so you can use it as area denial. Assault is not for the faint of heart, but often gets grabbed by those short of brain cells. This class holds the largest discrepancy in its player base. They will either cost your team the most or raise it up the highest, with little to no in between. Do not start on this class. They play best working in the middle of all three maps, using their verticality to hop ledges and get the jump on enemies. Most games are fine, but point seizure modes can be tough when they relocate to confined environments. The best bet is guarding the doors from the outside and slamming what intruders you can until it moves. Do not take head-to-head team fights. You are best as a flanker, so try to single out opponents and stab them in the back. Focus on working your flank routes and capitalizing on your relocation opportunities. It's what your whole class is built for. When you attack, use the hover fire ability to burst down enemy health and then splash in for an instant kill. If not, splash in, then get back up in the air right away for the second splash. That will kill any target as melee damage goes straight to health. The Sunderhammer and the Power Fist tend to be the two best weapons here, but there is a sleeper equipment pick, the Melt-A-Bomb. Using the jump pack, get above a concentration of enemies, drop a Melta on them, and let that bitch buck. Vanguard is in the same boat with a strong suit in relocation and flanking, but they can also work as a counter-sniper in a pinch, especially seeing as they can use their grapple to easily access high ground. Vanguard works well on Bastion and Mausoleum in all modes, but they kinda get waxed on Cathedrum because the flank routes are ass unless they get their grapple anchor points fixed. They share a weakness in confined spaces with the Assault, but they do fare much better. Vanguard tends to shine the most when you turn yourself into a ricochet to destroy a particular individual. Typically, you'll prep yourself to rip apart the enemy's backline units, playing the ranged game or a lone individual behind cover. The best way to do this is finding an anchor point for your grapple above the target, using it to violently overextend, lace them with bullets as you fall down, and then hit them with your other grapple charge as soon as they face you to close in and seal the deal. Grapple may also be used to reliably cancel defensive abilities like Bulwark and Heavy's shields. Bulwark can excel in all modes, but they have a particular strong suit for holding points. They are also the best way to beat bad players, but awful against players who know what they are doing. Fortunately, multiplayer is mostly populated by the first group. 90% of the Bulwark's gameplay is standing in the middle of a team fight as the enemies panic in front of you. They also happen to be the main reason that fights within enclosed areas don't work very well for most classes. Your banner makes you invincible against most gunfire, not to mention your shield, and between your power sword and power fist, nobody is contesting you in melee. Range is your only deficit, so work angles to make sure someone has to get within arm's reach of you, then go yard. Keep in mind, if you get a ton of assists and objective points on this class, that is a beautiful game right there. You did your job fantastically. Don't be getting surrounded or try to flank shit. You hold the line. You are the reason that flankers are allowed to do their jobs. Finally, we arrive at the class I have my personal best performances on. They will work well in any map and mode due to their unparalleled infiltration ability. There's a little bit of a saying I like to use when it comes to this class. The sniper fucks, but their sniper sucks. What, pray tell, does this archaic riddle mean? Well, it means that the bolt sniper rifle is straight ass and you might as well be throwing it at your opponent. Go grab a carbine, then we can have a conversation. Although I think it is a sick bastardization of this role, this is the best flanker in the game. Not only do you rob your enemies of their sensory faculties, the mythical flanking sniper causes severe psychological damage. Even in your absence, they will constantly be looking over their shoulder, leading to a full-on breakdown of team cohesion. A good flank from you, that means starting in the back and working to the front, will result in your team winning that fight 9 times out of 10. To be quite honest, I was considering not even addressing this one because I like the slot to remain open. We have now gotten to the brick shithouse of the group. The Heavy is an instant win in close quarters shootouts. They're also the best lane controllers available because of that fire hose of theirs that shits bullets everywhere and a projectable shield to put on top of it. This means that they are particularly suited for holding down or attacking objectives. It doesn't matter the map, so long as you can prevent yourself from getting caught within long open sight lines, you're gonna do a good job. You also need to pay attention to flankers because you are a target of great value to them. It's not even about your ability to kill so much as it is your ability to suppress a team. What the Bulwark does defensively, you do offensively in regard to preventing enemy players touching the point. Your movement isn't great, but it's not supposed to be, seeing as you're an anchor point for the team to revolve around. All in all, it's a thankless job, but it's a necessary one nonetheless. Plus, sometimes you'll have the game of your life when idiots just keep feeding themselves to you. Now that I told you how to play them, here are the most popular ways to counter all of these classes. By the way, there's no real counter to tactical, you just outplay them with whatever your class's specialty is. If an assault is being problematic, get something taller than you in the way of their splash path, or stand directly under them as they charge up. If you can't manage that, just shoot at the bastards in the air, dive when they splash, then backdash and gun them down. Vanguards usually can't help themselves and try to grapple you right away. You can shoot them while they glide to you, parry the kick, and then either stab or gun them down. You're probably going to want to use the gun. If they do the high grapple like I do, shoot them while they fall and they will die before they even hit the ground. That only works when they're not noticed. Bulwark can get complicated because it's such an annoying class to fight against. Your best bet is get close, shoot them so they raise their shield, stun their feet, and then quickly attack them from their off angle. Sometimes they drop banner. In that case, melee them to death. You can also parry the hell out of them as long as they use light attacks until someone else steps into the fight to finish it off for you. Traditional snipers are easy to kill. Just flank or rush them because their gun sucks even while hitting headshots. The only answer to flank snipers comes down to flash grenades and being able to see the blurred outline of them. You have a chance playing a high armor to act dumb and spin on them, but if they aren't idiots, you're kinda screwed. The heavy will die as long as you waste their shield and don't run face first into them. Do an initial burst of damage to make them throw it up in panic, hang in cover until it's down, move to another angle, and then break them with a flanking attack when they start shooting at something else. Look at a heavy with no shield the same way Columbus did to America. That shit's just free real estate to you. Well, there you have it. Tips on how to be a low-down, dirty bastard. I wanted to wait for the new patch before releasing this, but I don't have an ETA on that, so we're just gonna hope these stick. The one non-perishable topic from this remains to be as follows. Capitalizing off of idiots can only get you far as becoming the president. So that's pretty good. Be mad at that if you want, but I never said which one, so you're just getting mad at your own dumbass assumptions. Moral of the story is, if people are gonna be idiots, you might as well find a way to use it to your advantage. That's it for now. Thank you all, and have a good night.